seems like just yesterday, but it was 72 years ago. I was 5 years old, and I was in the Hartford, Connecticut circus fire, and to me it was the day the clowns cried. I remember it very, very well. It was a hot, hot day. July the 6th, 1944, was a Thursday. My father, your great-grandfather, was a newspaper man, and he worked for the Hartford Times. He would always get us free tickets for all the special events. This year's circus tickets were for the evening show, but because he did not want us to go at night, he was able to trade those tickets for the next day afternoon show. Only 2 were premier tickets. The other 3 were bleacher tickets. It was decided, I was only 5, that I would sit with my mother. My mother and I were seated in our chairs watching the acts. They had just let the animals in, and they were in cages in the center of the ring. But my favorite act, the bike riding on a high, they were riding high and on a narrow wire, was just starting, when all of a sudden people were running and screaming and climbing over bodies, were falling, and chairs were being tossed. I didn't know what was going on, and my mother just sat there, and I was totally confused. We realized later my mother was in shock. I think that's what really saved our lives. The heat of the fire brought my mother back, and at that point, my mother kept telling me we were going to go to the top of the circus layers, tiers. There were tiers, where the bleachers were. We were in chairs, and she kept saying we're going to go to the top because we couldn't cross to get out of the exit because the animals were still in their cages, and they were in the center ring, so they blocked us. I remember my mother telling me once we got to the top that she was going to roll me down in a canvas, and I couldn't figure out what she was going to do. But then when we got to the top, she said the canvas was gone and everyone had the same idea. She then hoisted me onto this enormous pole, and I could hardly get my arms around it. Remember, I was only 5. This pole had thick ropes wrapped at different sections. When she hoisted me onto the pole, she said, when you get to the bottom, just keep running and running away from the tent. I'll be right behind you. I remember going down that pole, and the next thing I remembered, I was face down in sand. I thought I would just die there because I couldn't breathe. But what had happened is when my mom made it down the pole, some lady jumped from the top and landed on my mom's back. And when my mom rolled the lady off of her, she rolled onto me. And because the area all around was sand, the weight of the lady crushed me into the sand. My mother at first couldn't find me. Then she saw a tiny piece of my blue dress sticking out beneath the lady. She then rolled the lady off of me. I remember my mother and I walking and walking and walking, looking for my brother, my sister, and my cousin. Hours later, we found out they had walked to my other aunt and uncles, and they were okay. Because they were in the bleachers, sitting in the bleachers, they were sitting right next to an exit, and they didn't have to cross the center stage where the animals were in their cages. But some of the older people kept telling the fire was part of the act and not to leave. But they did, thank God.